Hello and welcome. Wait, that's not my intro. Today I am joined by this
That's
strange man to my left here. This is some of you may know this man as Archon Scary, or is it Scarcast or Scarecast? Which way around is it?
either or. I think I should legally change my name to all of the above.
Is there a copyright?
Just because that's my name now. Everybody just knows me as Scary.
All right, so today I'm sort of going back to what was my first YouTube video and sort of turning it into more of a series. I will be collaborating with various YouTube people, including this lovely man right here, and talking about various factions and their specialties and sort of, what's gone wrong with them, what's gone right with them, sort of in the lead up to 11th edition. So we're sort of in the tail end of 10th edition now, so it's a nice time to talk about all these things. So Skari here is my expert of choice for talking about Drukari. So if I guess anyone from my end, would you like to explain, one, who you are to anyone who doesn't know for any reason, and what it is you've done / do?
Well, the game has grown so big in such a little amount of time that there's a lot of people who don't know who I am, which is fun. My name is Scary, or I'm Rizvan or Scary. I'm probably one of the best known Drukari players on the planet, and that's what I do. I play Warhammer. I have a YouTube channel where I mainly focus on Drukari, Dark Eldar, but I've been doing it for a long time now, and now I pass my time painting in my dungeon and coaching people on how to play Warhammer, and doing battle reports and going to events and raising a 13-year-old son and
Oh, that's a busy schedule,
and
that
having a
is.
family. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I live in Canada. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and I've been doing Warhammer since I was 12 years old. I'm going to be turning 39 in about 8 days from recording.
Well, congratulations and
So
commiserations.
yeah, yeah, I still don't feel that old at all, but it is what it is. I guess my body will tell me soon enough.
Oh dear, the knees going.
Yeah, that's right. Every time I get up, it's like,
You hear like the crackling noise.
that's when you've crossed the threshold, when you start making grunting noises when you get out of a chair.
The dad noise.
That's exactly right. That's right. Yeah.
So I guess with regards to Drukari, you're very well known for playing it. Did you say then, when did you start playing Drukari?
So I started playing Drukari when they still had their third edition codex, which was around 2008 is when I started. So a decent amount of time before the refresh. The model refresh came in 2010, which was already like a really long time ago, like 15 years ago now. And but before then, it was the old school Drukari models, like oldies. And that's when I started playing. Yeah, my original army though was Black Templars, and that's a lot of folks. I'll take pictures of the Templars I'm painting every once in a while, and people be like, "Wait, Marines? What is it, heresy?" And I'm like, "This is like my original army."
I'm sure there'll be
I
someone
just
on. Oh, sorry.
It's all good. I just typecast myself as the Drukari player because I love it, and but Black Templars are still like near and dear to my heart.
I mean, to a degree, I imagine there'll be a couple of people that comment on this video, being from my end, being like, "Ashra, you talk about Imperial agents. Why are you talking to the Xeno scum? What's going on?"
Well, we do tend to have some contact with rogue traders here and there. It's a big
It's
universe.
true, especially the Corsairs.
There's That's right. There are some trade deals that might happen behind closed doors and don't tell the Inquisition and all that.
So I suppose, in the general sense, you've got a decent time frame to think from there. How do you feel in general about the way Drukari sort of evolved over time, now leading into 10th edition?
Uh, that's a great question. Like originally, Dark Eldar, right,
Mm.
were sort of like the evil stepchild elf faction, right? Like they appealed to me because I like the idea of like pirate elves, right? That's what I liked about the faction. It was like pirates, they were on ships, and they were very much about hit and run warfare. And it was very different than power armor, like space marines with bolters that got out of rhinos and murdered stuff with like chainswords, right? and I like that sort of like contrast. That's what attracted me to them. They weren't necessarily a very fleshed out faction back then. Like they had character, but it was very much around like an archon that tended to like carry like your entire army a lot of the time. Like the archon was like the thing that did the most damage usually. And then you had like a lot of anti-tank weaponry and very squishy units. That has sort of like remained a theme over the last like many years where like Dark Eldar have punch, but it has sort of evolved from more of a very shooty punch to more of a combat-y punch.
Mm.
And then and then still having like the real punches in like you can do some shooting, but like we all know how reliable dark lances are. They either do everything or they do nothing, right? There's no like in between. And that's about how it has always been. But the feel of the army of like combat drugs and being able to kit bash your archons to ride jet bikes and stuff, they sort of like have streamlined it. But that's very akin to like 40K in general, where they've taken a lot of that like very flavorful stuff, which is more like narrative-y and thematic, and sort of like tried to make it more of a game that you can play against strangers on an equal footing,
Yeah,
if
for
that makes
sure.
sense.
I guess to go to what you were talking about there for a second, it's kind of interesting because I suppose to a degree, regular Eldar is almost the other side of that coin, where they, for the most part, are a bit more shooty focused, and then you have like a couple dedicated melee units, don't you?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I think Drukari is
And
kind of the opposite.
yeah, and like it, and then of course there's a bit of a difference in terms of like how much like how many resources go into sort of like the units that you do have, right? So like in Eldar, your average unit will kill an average unit of dark elves, but like a dark eldar unit is like half the cost of your elf unit, or like it's not as like you're not paying as much for it.
Hmm.
So it's like it is different. Like we have more of a swarm of locusts feel. I find where it's like you just have lots of like it works best when you just have lots of little trash units that go around and just you can throw them away. You don't care if they live or die,
Hmm.
which is very callous. But I think it's very akin to what Drukari do with staying within that sort of like almost hyper focus where like witches are good at combat, hellions are good at combat, right? Incubi are good at combat, Cavalites are okay at shooting, Ravager, Scourge, okay at shooting, and they have their own little like compartmentalized roles that they play. Which is different than like a Space Marine intercessor that can like shoot a bunch of bolter shots, but has a power fist in the unit that can go and like punch something if it needs to, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess to move on to some more specific stuff. So for me, for example, I started playing Warhammer again. Well, I mean, I played it as a kid, but I wasn't really playing in the same way, I suppose. In sort of
Right.
tail end of ninth, start of 10th. So a lot of
Yeah.
my time has been with the detachment system and the tail end of understanding how the psychic phase worked.
Yeah.
So how do you feel in general about how detachments have worked for Drukari compared to like previous editions?
Well, the flavor in and of itself is like kind of baked into the detachments. Like before, if you wanted to build a flavorful army, you just kind of like built a character and kind of built your army around that character or a set of a couple of characters. Like back when, I'm dating myself here, but there's this thing called the Force Organization Chart, which had, which if you played an army was built of 1 to 2 HQ choices, 0 to 3 elite choices, 2 to 6 troop choices, right? And that doesn't exist anymore. But like you'd sort of like you'd build your own your own restrictions on yourself if you wanted to build like a theme
Hmm.
army, within the parameters of that little force organization chart. And sometimes you'd have like a character that's like, if you take this character, you cannot take this other unit or you have a limit on these units or whatever. Like sometimes they were baked into specific like characters that you'd kind of build into your list. But detachments themselves, I find, have really added to the flavor of Warhammer. Like end of was it ninth edition, there was like a ton of different sort of like ways to build your armies with like hundreds and hundreds of stratagems, and like there's so much information. But we're getting to that point now in 10th edition where there's like each, like Space Marines have what, 20 detachments? I've lost count.
They have
Okay,
three
and
more
each
coming.
right, and each detachment has 6 stratagems, right?
Mm.
And some of them are the same, some of the different. But it's like there's more information then than we had before. But I do like that the detachments themselves tend to build into that sense of having a really cool sort of like theme to it, right? With like enhancements that kind of benefit the theme or encourage you to take units that then get a cool bonus, right? It does polarize the detachments because then not all detachments are made equal, right? Like, some are very, like a Gladius Space Marine army has proven to be a very robust way to play Space Marines throughout the entire edition, right? Whereas, if you go to like Anvil Strike Force or whatever, like every once in a while there'll be like this one that has like a very niche particular use to it, but it's definitely not what people would consider like, if I'm going to a 10 game GT, what would I take, sort of thing, right? But I like the flavor that adds, especially for Dark Eldar. Witches and Coven and Kabbalite stuff, and then like a couple of detachments that let you mix things. So I'm positive about it. I like it.
Yeah, I think to a degree, my initial reflections on it from like the end of ninth is kind of detachments seem like a good place to start, but it feels like there's potentially more, I guess, design levers you could add to it. Like I've seen people previously suggest like maybe certain detachments could have a points tax where it costs you 20 extra points to play Gladius, for example. There's like a way you could theoretically work with things. Or a way I think Marines has interestingly done certain things that other armies don't have as much because there's not as much, I guess, depth of detachments, is where you have certain detachments that say you can't take scouts, for example. Might be an interesting way to balance that, but they don't really seem to explore that right now outside of Space Marines, so I'd be interested to see if they expand that further.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think design philosophy wise, like Games Workshop has seemed to, like over the years, they've moved away from a restrictive sort of like rule set to more of a permissive rule set, right? Where they're like, it is definitely in line with sort of like the social contract at a global scale, where it's like it's nicer to be like, you can do whatever you want, but if you take these things, then you get some cool bonuses instead of being like, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this, you have to do this, right? Which is just a different design philosophy in the game.
That's true. Okay, so I guess to be a bit more specific, I suppose, is there any detachments in Druhkari you'd say you particularly favour this edition, like you've played the most? I assume at this point you've probably at least tried all of them once, maybe?
Oh yes,
yeah?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been doing a series where, well, the last year I went really heavy into the competitive scene. My aim was to be #1 globally. I ended up being #6 in the world globally for the ITC rankings. So that was like a very good success. And I played a lot of Sky Splinter Assault and Reaper's Wager, right? And so now that I'm taking a bit of a more relaxed year, yes, I have tested all the detachments. I'm going through a series right now where I'm basically playing each detachment multiple games in a row to develop a list that I would feel is a decent list with each detachment. And so far, I've done Spectacle of Spite, I've done Cablite Cartel, I did a Real Space Raid. I'm currently working on Sky Splinter Assault again, and then I'll be doing Coven and then Reaper's Wager, right? So I'm going to be doing all of them. As for how the game is right now, as we record this, I think Spectacle of Spite is probably the strongest detachment, not necessarily because it's the strongest detachment, if that makes sense, but because the mechanics that it plays sort of break the way that we've been playing the game for 4 years.
Is
Which
this specifically referring to that one strat that lets you charge at the end of the movement phase?
100%, right? It is a something that we just haven't seen, right? Because there's just nothing, there hasn't been anything like it the entirety of this edition, right? So there's a strength of this detachment because it sort of breaks the way that we play the game in general. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've played against
Right.
it maybe twice in casual play,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I guess for context, a lot of the armies I play have a lot of infantry that don't have much of a melee profile. So quite often what happens is I sort of have this wall of witches, right? Witches or
Yep.
the other ones on
Hellions
the
or
Hellions,
Reaper
that's the
jet
one.
bikes
Yeah.
or yep.
That are just in front of me, and they're like, please come and take these objectives off me. If you come near me, I will charge you, and you won't be able to shoot me because you don't have pistols or melee weapons.
That's right. So it's sort of like that at the moment is the strongest, I would say, detachment because it sort of like all it does is it is such a it's like playing a blue deck in Magic the Gathering, right? Like it's just you're just counterspelling everything, right?
Yeah.
Like you just stop your opponent from scoring. You have tons of very cheap trash units, and essentially you don't let your opponent really play the game more than just trying to solve the problem. And the problem is just a constant. It's like, well, you can move here, but I'm going to charge you here, or I'm not going to, and then I'm going to do this and that. And it just doesn't let your opponent really play the game like the game is played at all, which is why it's, I think, right now the strongest. It is on a razor's edge because it relies on a stratagem and like two data sheets, right? Witches and Hellions, right? Really. And as soon as any of those things get shifted, right, at any point, the whole detachment sort of thing that makes it good could just become completely useless, right? Um, so ride that wave while you can, right? You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I
But
guess
I think
it's.
the
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess it's kind of almost quite brittle in its design in that way. I guess my next question for that was actually going to be based on that, I guess, criticism of it, or even if would I call it a criticism? I guess evaluation of it. Is there a way in which you would potentially change that to make it, I guess, would you say it feels quite bad when that happens to you as an opponent? Because you're kind of locking someone out of play. Like you mentioned the blue comparison. A lot of people dislike that kind of play style because it doesn't feel fun to play. It's kind of like when you get play against indirect, for example.
Like it's very powerful, but like it's one of those sort of like non-interactive ways of playing the game, right? Where it's like, so I think there's a very simple solution that would be that the reactionary charge would be something that you'd have to declare when a unit finishes a move, right? Instead of like end of the movement phase, I could see it sort of being something where like, oh, it's like a reactive move, but it's a reactive charge, right? So even if it was like, even if they made it 1 CP, right, instead of 2 CP, right? That alone changes how that strategy, like, I'm going to move this unit on the objective. Do you want to charge me? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, well, you've used a stratagem over here. I can actually play the rest of my turn now. You know, it's like it would just that would be a very simple, sort of more elegant solution to it. Um whereas if you did something like it's in the charge phase, right? Like the Space Wolf one or whatever, then it becomes literally useless because then you just shot me to death and I'm a Dark Eldar player. I need to not get shot, right? And then everybody would go to like Reaper's Wager again or whatever.
I guess the other issue with doing that particular change is that those kinds of strats usually don't also give you the charge bonus, so you'll be hitting second, and you can't really do that as a Drukari player for the most part.
Well, you can't like you don't get a charge bonus when you charge in with that strat either, right? Um, So, but a lot
That's
of the
true.
time you have like Lilith Hesperex that gives you fights first, or you have the Succubus has fights first. So there's like ways around it. Um, but then if you do the charge, then you can use like any stratagem that allows you to use it when you charge, like the lethal hits and +1 AP strat. So like the damage output goes up. And then of course, like you said, pistols are a great sort of like way to mitigate it, right? Like if you have a bunch of Adeptus Mechanicus infiltrators that have 50 shot pistols, right? You just put a big line of infiltrators up and go, do you want to charge me? And then you go, here's 50 shots. Dead squad of witches, right?
I think I saw this scenario come up with a friend of mine who was playing Adeptus Mechanicus, and he had the scenario come up with the Electro Priests because their sustain hits 2 strength 6 guns of pistols. So yeah, there's really weird skew scenarios there, I think, where pistols kind of ruin it as well.
It's a solvable matchup, but it is one of those things where, like, mechanically, it's very strong because it doesn't really play the game of Warhammer. It's like a non-interactive way of playing where I can just do my moves. And I'll tell you, like, the first time I played Spectacle of Spite, I did a battle report. I'm playing against Sisters of Battle, right? Sisters of Battle, lots of little MSU units. It tends to be a very close game back and forth against Drukari desisters because of the fact that you have lots of flamers, pistols, lots of little cheap units, the same, but you tend to have like the miracle dice that can just kind of flip that variance over and kind of get you out of like some like pickle situations. And I deployed terribly, and my opponent rushed up, killed like 5 of my units in the first turn. And then after that, I was like, I shrugged my shoulders and just shoved units in their face, and without really thinking too much. And I still won that game because every time my opponent was like, I need to do this, I'm like, I'm just going to charge you. And it would just ruin everything. Or my opponent would be like, I'm just not going to move. I'm like, great, you're not going to play the game for a turn? Excellent. That makes me happy as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so I guess that sort of summarizes, I guess, the spectacle despite strengths and potentially issues. Is there any,
Yeah.
I guess, on the other end of the spectrum in this codex where you think maybe there's like a big flavor miss or there's a big mechanical miss to some degree? Like, is there something you think?
Oh
is,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. The Coven, any of the Coven like the Coven detachment has its play. I've played against it. It has its strengths, especially against like other elves,
Hmm.
right? Like it's a very good counter elf detachment, weirdly enough, because you have lots of flamers and you've got lots of tough models like Talos and Kronos that like heal themselves. So it's a good anti Adeptus Mechanicus counter as well. And a good like recon guard. Like so it's got like very specific things that it's very good against. But it like Rax and a Homunculus and a Talos and the Kronos, like all of the Coven stuff just doesn't feel Coven-y enough to me, if that
Okay.
makes sense. And they took away Uri and Rakarth and they put Grotesques into Legends. So like some of the really cool, meaty, no pun intended, units, right, just don't make it into the Coven, right? And and so that's like the one miss. I'm like, I wish the units were cooler because it would make me want to do it better. But like Rax, they're so bland. You have like Rax, Homunculus. Homunculus has a 6-up invul save. Like, why? Why does that? Why? Anyway, whatever. I'm not
No,
bitter at
I
them
mean,
at
no,
all.
it's a very valid criticism. I guess. I guess on the more positive side of that, then, if you were to, if you were Games Workshop and maybe next edition they go, we need more covens. Let's say it's like a 3-model wave. What would you want?
Oh well, I would dive into some of the lore options where you have corrupted wraith constructs
Ooh.
that they've tortured, and they torture wraith constructs and make their soul stones like basically bleed and stuff. And then you'd have like weird corrupted wraith guard, wraith lord style units, which would be really cool. Um, I think uh, it'd be really cool if maybe the Coven could do something like beasts for the arenas, but like flesh beasts for the arenas. Like if you had like, I don't know, a rack handler that's prodding a giant, I don't know, Medusa Hydra style monster with a big cattle prod, to be like buzz buzz, to get him up the battlefield or something. Kind of like a Skaven abomination, if you've ever seen one of those, like
Yes.
just a flesh, like just an amalgamation of goo and flesh and bits. That'd be kind of cool. As like it's like so you could do like a monster mash with like more of a like a pain carnival, like weird esoteric creations. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's a lot of design space they could explore there. Because the Covenant detachment, is that the one that makes the -1 to wound? Is this?
If the strength is higher, you're -1 to be wounded.
Right, right.
Yes. So yes, it's good. It does help the Talos and the Kronos from like getting zonked as easily by like last cannons and things like that. But it's just really the racks, like the core of like the racks themselves. I feel like just that data sheet is just a miss in general. Like anything would make them a little bit better. Like I just wish they had their feel no pain back and they just felt a little chunkier.
What do they do right now? There's one of the few data sheets I can't remember from memory.
They're just basically they're a space marine,
Okay.
T4 2 wounds with a 5 up armor save or 4 up armor save, 5 up armor save, and a 6 up invul. That's it. Like they
Ooh.
do a little bit of damage in combat, and they're about the same cost as a space marine.
Yeah, that's not great.
So it's like, yeah, it's like, I might as well, like, for the cost of 2 units of 5 racks, I can get like a unit of witches and half a venom paid for, and then that's like way better than
Mm.
like 2 units of racks.
Okay, I guess from my perspective, as someone who's played a couple games against various detachments, the one I think is probably my favorite from like a flavor perspective has to be the Harlequins one, because I think
Reaper's
that
Wager?
yeah, the
Yeah.
idea of the bouncing back and forth with the wager, I suppose, it's just a really interesting concept. I like it when they do really, I guess, flavorful sort of themes playing around there. Things like that, and the Tzeentch detachment, the Chaos Demons have things with weird mechanics are really interesting to me like that.
It is very flavorful. I do like they fixed the whole you can add Harlequins and Corsairs to like regular Drukari detachments now anyway, so that's nice where you can kind of have like all of that built in. But it is cool. Like, the I have played it with lots of Harlequins. I've also played with little bit of Harlequins, but that like dichotomy of being able to like flip it back and forth to gain like small micro efficiencies over the course of the game is sort of like a micro game in and of itself. Is very fun when you sort of get into it and really try and make it work. Be like, ooh, okay, so if I shoot you with this Void Weaver, I can flip the wager in the shooting phase, and then I can shoot this big thing I need with all my like Dark Eldar stuff until I kill it, which will flip the wager again. Then I can send my Solitaire or Troop Master in to kill this unit in combat, which will then flip the wager, which then gives Lilith reroll ones to wound as well, so she can like more effectively kill the unit she's trying to kill, and then go back and forth. I do like that a lot. It is a fun mechanic.
You mentioned the Corsairs there. Are those seeing much play in Drukari, or are they sort of a bit of a miss in the Drukari Codex comparatively? I know Eldar uses them a lot for their scouting, but
Mm-hmm. Because we have the ability to split our Hand of the Archon now since the latest update, it's there's less, right? So you buy a Venom, you split a Hand of the Archon, then you have a Scouting Venom and then a Scouting 5-strong unit for about the same cost as you would buy, say, 2 units of Corsairs with Scout. The biggest thing I like about I personally use them in a few of my armies. I have the Corsairs in my Drukari armies for that scout and high OC, like objective control for early skirmish play, where I can just like run a little unit of things that don't benefit from my detachment bonus, they don't benefit from my army bonus. They're just like 10 OC that I can move up and go get an area denial or something quick in the middle of the board, and I don't really care if they die. But it's like a reliable way of getting a unit there, regardless of the table, the terrain, the deployment, because of the fact that they have that scout move. And I can get very aggressive with them and then pull them back if I need to, or get defensive with them and sort of see where I need them to go based on who goes first or second. So they're a versatile choice, but the Hand of the Archon has sort of like replaced why I was putting them into my list in the first place. Love the models though. So if I'm ever playing a list where I'm like, I want to take one of everything because I think it's cool, they would make it into my list because they look cool.
I will say, I was just pulling them off my phone as well from the Eldari Codex. I found it interesting there, because you mentioned they don't benefit from the army ruler. In Eldari, I think they do, right? Because they have the Asiani keywords. It's weird that...
They get...
That's an interesting design choice. Okay.
Now, if they could go in Drukari transports, like if they were allowed to go into a Venom or a Raider, right? That would be great. But sadly, they don't. So it's like they're very limited in their use.
I mean, it'd be very interesting if in future they made like a Corsair detachment or something, and they were like, "Hey, in this detachment they can go in the boats, because then you can go. Here's the 10-man with the Wraith cannon in a Raider."
Well, back in the day, we had the old Forge World Corsairs, right? And you had like Corsairs that were like on jet bikes, and they had like backpacks. They go in Falcons. They even had Venoms. Like Corsairs had Venoms that had splinter cannons, right? Like, basically that was before Skyweavers, or around the same time that Skyweavers showed up, like the Harlequin stuff. But like it was all in the Forge World Corsair army list, right? So it would 100%, considering how creative they've been getting with some of these detachments. There's almost no excuse other than the fact that they don't want to, and that they don't care about us as a faction. So just saying.
I mean, I think it would be very nice if they kind of did what they did with Harlequins for Corsairs, if they do end up getting some kind of range expansion at some point, is they go, okay, here's one for Druhkari and here's one for Asuryani, for example. Because that would just make sense, I think, 'cause they're in both codexes.
Yeah, or it's like they've done like this detachment gives this keyword to these units. Like it's not like it's unheard of where they could just be like, in this detachment, all Corsairs get the Asuryani and Drukari keyword or whatever. Like, so that then you could like mix and match and use psychic powers to help each other, or it'd be kind of cool, right? But it's like in some detachment, you're like, in this detachment, all X unit gains the battle line keyword. Like they've done this before. Like it's not like, out of this world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got like a squad and a half, I think, of the Corsairs in a box next door, and I don't think I've touched them since ninth. Because what I used to do is, I don't think it was super competitive. I used to play the 10-man because I had the Psyker, and I really liked the Psyker model, and I would just use it to cast that one spell that generated a CP. But yeah, there's a lot of room for potential there as well. Let me think what's next in terms of subjects. I think something I had noted down on my computer here is that I wanted to talk about was the way in which is it Power from Pain, the army rule sort of evolved over the edition? Because at the start of the edition, was it hit rerolls in the index? And then with the codex release, it sort of shifted to this thing that unlocks abilities. Do you feel that's been a good change, having now played with it for, was it 4 or 5 months? 6 months?
Oh yeah. 100%. I really do like the new pain token mechanic. The resource management of the pain token mechanic, did adapt. So early, just straight reroll hits, and reroll charges and reroll advances. Right. So it's just rerolls. The in the edition, I think a year into the edition or so, we got the extra AP in combat, which really boosted the damage output of like Incubi and Hellions and like combat units that wanted those rerolls to actually get damage through. That change was a very big change in the index. Now, in the codex, pain tokens are like a command point, right? You use them to unlock a special stratagem that you can use for the unit that's just for them, even if they're battle shocked. So it's like a better stratagem, right? And I do like the way that it works because now it's like a lot simpler to use them sequentially, where you can use one to kill something to generate one to then use it on the next thing, right? So it's less punishing for like newer players. Like, I, as an experienced player, the old index way was great, but you had to be very careful of where you put your pain tokens every phase. You had to have a plan before you even started like shooting or combat because you needed to know where the pain tokens were going to go. And if you ran out of them and you didn't kill anything, you just didn't get any back. So now you like automatically get one at the start of the turn. And it works very well with like the way that the game plays anyway, which is like 2 to 3 turns of like skirmishing and staging, and then turn 4, 5, or 3, 4, 5, it's like a push turn. At that point, you should have enough pain tokens to sort of like get what you need to do done. And I end up playing most games where I have like usually every game, I've got way more pain tokens than I need at the end. Like I don't even know what to use them on. I'm like, because a lot of the mechanics are like phase locked to a very specific thing or rule. And so you get to like certain phases where you're like, well, nothing that I have has rules that I can use in this phase. So it doesn't matter.
That makes sense. I guess in that vein, is there any units you would say you don't tend to use the Power from Pain abilities on? Like, is there any you think could be improved or maybe missing there?
I use, okay, so if we did a quick, so I've used every Power from Pain ability. I think
Okay.
the one that was the most disappointing was like the Homunculus Power from Pain ability, which
Right.
is Resurrect Rax. Why? Because they don't live long enough to ever use this ability.
Right. So
Did we say it?
yeah. So it's the like
They're
the apothecary problem, right? The units
yeah,
attached to it isn't durable enough to warrant using the
just dead.
ability.
They die. It's like, yes, I'm gonna bring back D3+1 racks, but I have no racks to bring back at all because they all died to those 5 intercessors with bolt guns. It's like, oh
Oh.
well. So that's like the only rule that I haven't really used. Like Talos fight on death, good. Void Raven Bomber ignore cover, good. Ravager suppression, good. Scourges, rerolling hits, good. 6-inch deep strike on Carbine Scourge, good. Uppy Downy Mandrakes, good. Witches, advance, fullback, like good. Like all of these are great. Reroll wound rolls for Kabalite Warriors, good. Reroll hits for an Archon, excellent. Lilith for +1 strength, +1 AP, amazing. Like it's just the Venom is probably one I use the least, which is advance and disembark, right?
Yeah.
But every once in a while, it is clutch and will win you games. So it's very good to have in your back pocket. Oh, and then the Raider one I rarely use, which is the anti weapons inside of the vehicle get reroll hit rolls, right? So like
Ooh,
basically
that's
your
really
poison
specific.
weapons get reroll hits. It's very specific. It's like your anti-infantry rifles from your Cabalites or your pistols will get reroll hit rolls if you're inside. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Sure. Absolutely. I might as well get out, have an Archon with the unit to get reroll hit rolls, and then have the ability to put a stratagem on then, like sustained hits or whatever, right?
No, I
Anyway.
think it's quite funny talking about that assault ramp one because I think I have a couple of my armies have that as options, and almost always what ends up happening when I have a game is at the start of the game I'm running through what my strats do, and I say to my opponent, "I have 1 CP assault ramp. Do you have any flamers?" And they go, "No," and I go, "Cool, I'm not going to use it."
Yeah. Assault ramp, or you mean firing deck?
Advanced disembark or the one you're talking about,
Oh yeah,
the Venom
yeah.
one.
Advance and disembark. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely. It's not. They can't charge after that, right? Because
Oh, it's advanced
it's
disembark
made
and
in
shoot, is it?
advance.
Gotcha.
It's just advance and disembark. Like it doesn't give you the ability to get a charge after advancing a
Gotcha.
vehicle. But it's just good to kind of like get that venom just far up the board enough to go onto that objective, or to
Yeah.
put him in a position to do that action, or get that behind enemy lines, or it's just a very specific use, or to fly over the screen far enough and then disembark or whatever. But so that's one I don't use very often, but I use it when I need to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess my last note on this particular subject, because this is something I wrote down beforehand, was
Mm-hmm.
is there any concerns you might have from like the new player perspective of having to try and remember all of these things? Because it does feel like it's an extra, I guess, as you said, set of stratagems. Do you ever struggle with learning that? And to a degree, my worry would be Drukari's already kind of a, not niche, but like it's not the most popular faction compared to some. And I have small worries that maybe that's not helpful to that.
Oh, 100%. I'd say one of the hardest rungs to sort of like go over of playing the Drukari is learning your rules.
Mm.
Most of the time when I'm watching like other Dark Eldar players, Drukari players on streams or battle reports or whatever, like it's very easy to forget the fact that a witch cult, like a Hecatrix blast pistol is AP4, where a Cabalite blast pistol is AP3, right? Like just little things like that. That like unless you're constantly going through the different like weapon loadouts, it's like it's going to you're gonna miss it. And it can be very overwhelming because not only are you like I was playing with the hand, even me, like I'm a professional 40K player. I do Warhammer for a living, and I've been testing out the Hand of the Archon and playing it. And even nowadays, like I'm still at the stage where I have to like I'm actively going into like my app or whatever and looking at every single weapon loadout as I roll it, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to roll this weapon now. I have two of them in the unit, and I'm trying to like memorize these so that it's easier for me when I go to tournaments. It can, and even for me, I'm like learning what they do, right? And then on top of that, you have to learn all the datasheet abilities, and some of them have like weird caveats, which are very easy to miss, right? Like the Hand of the Archon is like you get lethal precision, but not with blasters, blast pistols, or dark lances, right? Like very specific on like the three weapons you cannot get precision with because they don't want you to precision to melt a gun someone or whatever. But like everything else is fine, and unless you read the whole rule and memorize it, it's very easy to just see the highlighted sections to be like lethal precision and be like, oh yes, my dark lance is amazing, and kind of go from that point.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I guess, like, because my initial worry thinking about that was it's already not an easy army to learn because it's so fragile. Like it's a fast army that falls over if you position wrong, and then you're also having
Yep.
to learn these rules on top of that. Was my
Yep.
thought when writing that down. So we've already talked
Yeah.
about model range stuff somewhat in terms of the covens. Is there anywhere else you want to see expanded? Because you've sort of the Cabalites, the ones that probably received the most love, aren't they? Because they just had Lady Malice, and they're probably the most up to date models of the bunch.
Well, the witches,
Hmm.
Hellions, Cabalite warriors, the Raider, the Venom, they're all like 15 years old now. You know,
Hmm.
like they're great in terms of kit bashing capability, you know, stuff. Awesome. Um, like I wish that the Beast Pack would come back, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like I wish the Beast Pack would come back, even if it's not in its same sort of like I love the core of the Archon models, like the Slith and the Urgle, like that sort of like esoteric, more showcasing how varied the
Hmm.
Dark City is. Like it's not just Dark Eldar live in the Dark City. It's just like anything depraved that will do something for a buck. You know what I mean? Like that's like anything that's just mean and evil and wants to like backstab someone, you know, for no reason other than their own like benefit, would live there and potentially go onto a real space raid. And it'd be really cool to see more of that sort of like weird stuff, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think like while I'm not necessarily disappointed to see what Drukari got in 10th, I think a lot of people were hoping for a little bit more. It was the general sentiment I saw, at least on like the Drukari Reddits and stuff. So very curious to see what they get going towards into 11th. I guess in that vein, is there anything you'd like to see from like a rules perspective as well? I guess going forward into 11th, like what would you like to see improved in general for Drukari?
Well, I do think that they hit the nail on the head with like how the Drukari feel. Like they
Hmm.
feel like Drukari, if that makes sense. So I think that what I would say is don't mess it up. Like, you know, like if other than a few sort of like things here or there, adding like the odd unit or whatever, like keep the feel and just kind of build on the feel of what it is, which is like hard hitting, fragile, very fast and maneuverable, and like callous with life and death, but with like units that do like the job that they're supposed to do relatively well, but also keep that whole like playing Dark Eldar is on a razor's edge, where if you're good with Dark Eldar, you can, it's like fighting against shadows because you're never going to be able to get the the engagement you want or the trade you want or whatever. You're always fighting a commitment that then disappears behind walls or that is very fast and is on one side of the table and then suddenly is on the other side of the table, and it can be hard to react to that. But at the same time, if you do it wrong or if you overcommit and then lose like you can lose 8 to 10 units of your army in a single turn, and the whole thing just falls flat on its head, right? So it's like you're always living on that razor's edge of like ultimate perfection, but like disaster is just a a moment away.
Yeah, for sure. I think that to some degree is probably very appealing to a lot of players. Like it's sort of riding that line is kind of, I guess, the Drukari way to a degree. Okay,
Definitely is.
I don't have many other topics to go through here, so I guess to round out, I suppose, if I guess for my audience, for example, is there anything you'd say for anyone who maybe is looking at your channel for the first time or coming from my end and looking at Drukari for the first time that's like, is there anything you say is like, this is what you should look at first? These are the tips I would give you to reach that goal of riding that line, I suppose.
Absolutely. Well, number one, Dark Eldar is not for the faint of heart. You mean like it is like there's tons of people that I've met over the years that are like, I'm gonna do Dark Eldar, and then they play like 10 games and they're like, I lost every game, and like I can't do this, and then they quit. If you're that kind of person, this faction is not for you. It's not that the wins are and it can be hard to wrap your head around it at first, but once you do, the catharsis that you will like gain, the sort of like you will ride that for a long time, like chasing that same sort of feeling. When you get it and you understand it and see it on the table, and then your opponent is like pulling their hair out because every choice they make feels like the wrong choice, and you're like, yes, that's exactly what I want you to feel, right? That's kind of how this whole faction just works in general. Um, Couple of key things is you're going to win or lose the game mainly in deployment. So get good at deploying. everything in your army is going to die. That is okay. It's not about if it's going to die. It's about learning to make sure it dies where you need it to die instead of where your opponent chose that it would die. And three is don't change your list up too much. Like pick something you vibe with and just play it as many times as you can. And the more of a core you build that doesn't change, the easier it'll be for you to remember all your rules, number one. And number two, understand how your army will adapt to other armies you're playing against, which is the biggest part about Dark Eldar is you can win any game, but you have to know what units are important for what games and which units are the most sacrificial in what games. A good example of that is Scourge, right? A Dark Lance Scourge unit is not necessarily the best shooting unit in the world, but if you do it right, it will shoot for 5 turns every game, right? So it might not be the best unit at shooting, but if you can keep it alive and shooting for 5 turns, odds are it'll do something in those 5 turns at some point that's important. So in most games, you want to keep them alive. However, if you're playing against Eldar and they have a Wave Serpent, Dark Lances are absolutely crap against Wave Serpents. So why am I trying to keep my Scourge alive when a unit of 5 Scourge will beat up 5 Swooping Hawks or 5 Striking Scorpions the same as a unit of Witches will, because they're just other elves. So I will get way more aggressive with my Scourge in the Elf matchup than in like a Space Marine matchup, as an example. So knowing those nuances is important, but you only do that if you stick it out.
Interesting thing at the end there, actually. Have you had by chance seen is it Sam Pope's YouTube channel? Because I think at one point he was talking about those concepts of like a unit being deliverable and durable, and durability not necessarily just meaning it actually being durable, but like the scourges, like you mentioned.
Yeah, he's
If
talking
you're able
about
to,
the pillars of competitive Warhammer,
mm,
which if you play competitively and you're known, it's like you might not call it the same, but those are very important, sort of like key concepts to playing the game, and understanding the units, because in some games a unit's will be like a Ravager will be more useful in this matchup than it will in that matchup. So in this matchup, it becomes more of your screen because it's literally useless. So use it as a screen instead of trying to keep it alive. Like you have to understand that everything is a piece that is tradable. Like you can just, and the more comfortable you get with this concept of your army starts on the board or doesn't, it all dies, and then guess what? Next game, you just have it all back again. It does like there's no emotional connection to them living or dying. You'll get better at playing Dark Eldar for sure.
I mean, interestingly, listening to you talking about those like tips and hints, weirdly, I think a lot of the people that watch my videos and play Imperial Agents would actually really enjoy Drukari because it's the same kind of idea. Like, there's no army rules. You are just throwing units away to score points in this army. So, in a lot of ways,
Correct.
I mean, probably less damage than Drukari, I would say, but similar
I guess
concept.
there's ways to do it. Like I will tell you right now, as a Drukari player, I see people talking about agents not being a real army, and I say it's absolute bullcrap because I know for a fact that I could take an agent's army to a tournament and win a tournament with it. Like I like just from playing against agents and seeing a lot of the crazy shenanigans, I'd be like, I would be in my element playing an agents list, and it probably wouldn't look like the meta agents list, if that makes sense. It would be my own concoction, but I would make it sing. And because it has
Mm.
all the cool little interactions that I would I would make it like all work and mesh together. And so I understand where you're coming from, like where you're coming from. I would love it. And I do have the option to potentially do that. One of our Team Canada board members has a big agents army. He said I could borrow it anytime. So I might do that. At some point towards the end of the season or whatever, I might just take it out to an event and kind of put my money where my mouth is,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is a trademark of mine.
what I was going to say there is maybe at some point I should have you back and we'll do another video where we like lab an agents list or something. That could be interesting.
That would be awesome. It'd be really cool. Like if we want to do something, if your watchers want to do it, we're like, yeah, it'd be cool to see Scary. Like you and I could like build a list. I'll go to like a local RTT or a GT or whatever and just take that list and I'll do like a little tournament review on my end. But on your end, we could then talk about it before and or after or whatever. That'd be fun. I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, we can think about playing that. Sounds good. All right, so I guess to round things out, first off, we're using YouTube's collaborate system if it works properly. So down below, you can subscribe to both of our channels. So anyone from my end, please go check out Scare's channel at Scarecast. And anyone who's interested in my content, which generally tends to be sort of discussion style content or talking about the armies that I enjoy. Agents is one of them. I've talked about other armies as well, and I plan to talk about more armies, but I also make some guides and stuff like that as well. So if you like that kind of thing, check out my channel down below as well and like the video. And I guess also as an extra thing, which isn't necessarily Scoury related, if you like this kind of format and want to see me talk to other people about other armies as we head towards 11th edition, please let me know down below if there's anyone you think I should talk to in a similar way about their army of specialty, because it'd be interesting to hear, because I don't know every YouTuber on the planet. There might be someone interesting that I haven't reached out to. So thanks again, Scary, for coming on. This has been a lot of fun to talk to you.
Thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. If anybody has, I'll be reading the comments, so I'm looking forward to hearing what all of you lovely folks have to say.
All right. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.